Betsy and Thomas here for the American Intelligence Media. Thomas, I've heard something rather disturbing I was hoping you could help me with. I heard that Uranium One is a hoax that comes from the office of the president. What say you?
Well, I say you're right. So whoever you heard that from must be telling you the right stuff. You know, as you hear many commentators screaming and yelling and being alarmists about the fact that they're so upset that Hillary and the State Department sold uranium to Russia, or that Russians came into America and had something to do with uranium and taking our uranium, and they're just so upset. Well, I'm sorry to have to tell you that's standard operating procedure and has been since the early 90s. Now, we've done one audio on this, but you might have missed it, so I may have to do a bit of a summary on this, but let's just go to the blunt facts here. Yes, Obama is in 100% league with the Russians, selling them our uranium in this country to Russian oligarch thugs who skimmed millions of dollars off and used extortion and blackmail, all that. But that's normal for any Russian deal. But what they don't mention is that Obama also allowed that uranium to be moved out of this country to Canada, refined, and brought back to this country, which in a minute I'm going to explain why that's insane. But anyway, he allowed that. And so not only the Committee for Foreign Investments in the United States, which Hillary Clinton was on, and all 9 of them voted for having Uranium One get as much as 20% of our existing uranium in the ground from Wyoming and dig it up, bring it to Paducah, Kentucky, and then, some strange, mysterious things happened then. Then that uranium went to Canada to a company that's owned by a friend of Bill Clinton's. His name is Frank Guistra. They refined the uranium and then had to bring it back across the border and then ship it to nuclear facilities. Now, what many people don't understand is nuclear facilities are owned by corporations. They are not government owned. So they have to get their uranium. So there has to be a production of uranium somewhere, right? But what I'm about to tell you is going to shock you, because this has been going on for over 20 years, and every member of Congress is complicit in this. And all the presidents back to George Herbert Walker Bush are all complicit in this. And any American, like I've heard on the news again and again, jumping up and down, screaming until their head almost explodes and their eyes pop out of their head, that they are so upset that America is in league with the evil Russians concerning nuclear material. Okay, well, hang on to your hat, because when the story truly unfolds, you're going to find out that none of this is criminal, and that it's been going on a long time, and that the only thing that was criminal is that the Russian mafia guy sent over, Vadim Mikarin, who ran the company, which was the one of 16 affiliates of Tenex, which is Russia's number one uranium company, but it's also directly connected to Rosatom. Not just connected to, it is an affiliate. Go to their webpage. They say they are, and they are part of the Russian, what we would call, Nuclear Regulatory Commission. So basically, a Russian company, Tenex, has 16 companies in different countries, and the one in America was called Tenam, and it's been operating since approximately 1994, when America bought, with U.S. taxpayer money, used uranium-235 weapons grade from Russian ICBM missiles that were decommissioned. They had about 40,000 at their height, 44,000 at their height. They're now down to 7,000. So all those missiles came back from their satellite countries, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan. They all brought them back to Russia. Russia decommissioned them and sold them. Why? Because uranium-235 is worth $140,000 an ounce. I can't think of much else that's worth that much. Plutonium-239, which is the element in atomic bombs, nuclear bombs, which is usually wrapped around with uranium-235 weapons grade, brings $140,000 an ounce also, about $5,000 or more a gram. Well, in any bomb, any of those old ICBMs, even if they didn't have multiple warheads, they had about $30 million worth of plutonium in each bomb, and probably 20 to 30, and it depends on whether you go with a small bomb, 6 kilograms, or for the plutonium, or you go for a large one, 20 kilograms, or you go how much uranium you have in it. But let's just give it a standard and say in American dollars, $60 million per warhead. That means that they had 35 of these, 1,000 of these, that they were decommissioning, all worth tens and tens of millions. And that uranium was weapons grade, and it was high enriched, what's called HEU, high enriched uranium. And it is very, very, very expensive, and it isn't supposed to be moved around. So what happened? How did this happen? How have we had 20 years of the United States of America not only bringing over old used uranium, but also new uranium through Bill Clinton, through Kazakhstan and Tenex there, directly connected to the Kremlin and their own nuclear regulatory agency, and through our own Department of Energy and our own Nuclear Regulatory Commission. There are agreements, but there are middlemen in between in all these deals. And that's where the presidents get involved. Presidents are like mafias, especially after they get out of office. They always get into where the big money stream is. So what's better than gold at even $2,000 an ounce? How about $140,000 an ounce for uranium-235? So George H.W. Bush got his part in founding a company that was the go-between, which really wasn't necessary, a corporation called the United States Enrichment Corporation. It operated right up until 2013 and is the exact same gas centrifuge enrichment plant in Paducah, Kentucky that the Russian oligarchs used to enrich our uranium from Wyoming before they took it to Canada and then brought it back, and who knows what they did with it, and then took it to, and also why it was out of the country and crossing back and forth, who knows what they did to it. We know that millions and millions and millions of dollars in slush funds arose out of their extortion and blackmail and price gouging and all this other corrupt stuff that they did. That's why Vadim Mikarin of Russia's Tenam company, Tenam, in Paducah, Kentucky, which actually was running out of Maryland, I do believe. But that's where they ran the trucking company. They don't name the owner of the trucking company. He was also supposedly convicted, but we haven't heard anything about his name, and we haven't heard anything about him going to jail, like poor Vadim Mikarin is going to jail for 48 months for over 8 years of corruption and extortion and blackmail and all this stuff that he did with this company. The reason why is, look them up. They're still operating. They're still doing dirty deals. They're still taking the uranium and rarefying not only our uranium and then taking it to Canada, doing something with it, bringing it back and selling to us at elevated prices, but they're also taking Kazakhstan, and Bill Clinton got tons of Kazakhstan uranium to come into this country and run through the same Paducah, Kentucky gas centrifuge uranium plant. So there's only one. It provides 85% of the uranium for the world.
No, I was just going to ask you. It sounds like this particular plant is only one of maybe very several in the world, if not the only one, and that's why they have to bring this in?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
85% of the world's entire enriched uranium, whether high or low, enriched uranium was all run through this one plant.
So all of it has to be purified, or whatever they do there. Now, how do you know this, Thomas?
It's right on just read their webpage.
Okay, so it's
read history. This is well-known history. Google Google megatons for megawatts, and you'll find out that from about 1994, it's really uncertain, but for 20 years, we brought in 50 tons of enriched uranium from Russia, from depleted, from these missiles that had been decommissioned. But strangely enough, that was weapons-grade high enriched uranium. They had to degrade it. They had to put it through a special process so they could move it, because it's dangerous otherwise. And so they had to basically de-enrich it and then send it to America to enrich it.
Well, they were just laundering it.
Well, of course. To then send it to corporations which are subsidized by your tax dollars, but are actually owned by individuals because nuclear plants are a big scam. We never needed to have uranium nuclear plants. We could have gone with thorium. At the same time, uranium plants were developed with horrible radioactive waste and no solution whatsoever to the radioactive waste, which also Tenam is big in handling radioactive waste. So if you think they were screwing us on ripping us off for our own uranium, taking it out of the country, doing nonsense with it, bringing it back, elevating the prices, you can bet that the contracts that they still currently have to move radioactive waste in this country are huge scams.
Okay. Well, who's making money on all
Well,
this?
that's where we're going. President Herbert Walker Bush,
Oh.
with Vanguard, through Vanguard, basically took what I call rogue CIA money, or we could call ex-president mafia money. And he had already manipulated USSR and brought the wall down, working underneath Reagan. He was in charge of foreign affairs at that time by an executive order. He brought down the wall, and then he fleeced Russia and all of its satellite countries, and this was just another one of his fleecing deals. He got the gold, he got the oil in some of the countries, but he for sure said, oh, look at this. Russia has all this leftover uranium, which is worth more than gold or oil. I'm getting a piece of it. So he set up the United States Enrichment Corporation, which up until 2013 was a scam that we Americans had to keep pouring money into this company because they were going to build, supposedly, in Ohio, another gas centrifuge enrichment plant, a big one. And so they were spending billions of dollars on it, and they were getting subsidies from the U.S. taxpayers. Oh, what does that sound like? A scam. Why did they just stick with the plant they had? They produced 85% of the world's weapons-grade enriched uranium-235, which then, of course, if put into a breeder reactor, turns into 236, 238, and then eventually plutonium-239, which you must have for weapons-grade plutonium-239 so you can have nuclear bombs. So this is basically a scam being run on the fact that Russia had about 44,000 ICBMs. They went back to 7. We went from about 55,000 back to 7 or thereabouts. Nobody really knows. Now here's the sad part of all this. Bill Clinton. He couldn't take it that Daddy Bush got his part of the pie and he didn't. And he watched this money being... No one knows really how much we paid for it.
It was probably Hillary, not Bill.
Well, Hillary is the brains. Bill is the,
Of the brawn.
he's Wild Bill, and he's got a reason for being called Wild Bill. So he saw Daddy Bush, the best of the CIA agents ever, and so when he went rogue and started his own mafia, it had already been in full swing through his election and the entire time he was vice president of Ronald Reagan. And remember, he tried to assassinate Ronald Reagan, a very close personal friend of their family. One of his son's best friend shot Reagan. Don't forget that. And remember that George W. Bush, we should bring that out during this JFK investigation, will be found to be one of the major CIA deep plants in the assassination, which has already been proven. We don't need the stuff that's just been released. It's well known. And those crimes led up right to 9/11. But anyway, George Herbert Walker Bush got his piece of the uranium pie from the missiles. But as soon as Clinton signed it into action, he said, I see what you're doing. This is a great scam. I want to do it. So in 2005, Clinton, and then through deals going on thereafter right up to this very day, Bill Clinton has approached Kazakhstan and Russia. Now remember, when you go to Kazakhstan and you get uranium, you're getting it from Vladimir Putin. Period. Vladimir Putin gets his part of Rosatom, the company that owns 10X, which is run by their Nuclear Regulatory Commission. That's a fact. So when you're talking about getting Bill Clinton getting Kazakhstan uranium, you were basically talking about Bill Clinton did a deal with Putin. So we get the uranium, it comes over under all kinds of auspices underneath the guise of this program called megatons to megawatts, which provides America for 20 years, according to them, through nuclear power plants with 10% of all the electricity we used in those 20 years was supplied by uranium-235 from weapons that had been aimed at us. But we didn't strike a deal where we turned off all the weapons. No, we made sure that those weapons were then spread to other countries. Remember, it was Russia, through its 10X company, that actually supplied North Korea with the breeder reactor it needed to create plutonium-239. It was the Russians who supplied them with that. And then what happened? Oh, then the Americans got mad and they went over and said, shame on you, stop that. And they said, yes, we will. So we gave them $4.5 billion. And what did they do? Brought that breeder reactor back online and created more plutonium-239 because they had plenty of uranium. They could get that from all kinds of sources. So, as a matter of fact, 10X and even Tenam, the Russian company in America, sells our uranium to the world, including Iran, including North Korea, including all of our enemies. They're transnational, international companies, globalists run by Russian mafia. That our FBI, under the investigation of Rod Rosenstein, ignored their criminal activity for 8 years, and then when they were finally prosecuted, tried to hide the fact they were being prosecuted because he also sat on the committee with Hillary Clinton that said, yeah, we should sell to Uranium One through Tenam. And we should let that Paducah, Kentucky scam, horrifying scam truck company called Transportation Logistics International, who they still won't say the name of who runs that. You can look it up on the website. We have. By the way, to have this conversation with you, I had to spend 2 hours on the phone with one of the previous top nuclear engineers in this country, a man who helped retool Oak Ridge himself. So we're not talking off the top of our head. We're talking from the conclave. So I have yet to say any of this is my personal opinion because none of it is. The conclave members remember these things when they happened. In 1993 and 94, when we saw Bush doing this, we went, oh, Lord, this is unbelievable. So Bush is as corrupt as he can be, and it was uranium, and they wanted, from the time that Bush started this program, he wanted us to be able to buy plutonium-239. In other words, making available the fissile material, the fusion material, the nuclear material that any terrorist could get their hand on because the Russian oligarchs would have sold them a truck full of this stuff for, whatever price they wanted to. Because why? They're criminals. They're coming over here. They're ripping us off. It's obvious they're ripping it off. They've been charged for that. 8 years of ripping us off. No one is told about it. There's hardly any fines. 48 months. This is a national, international security issue. Everyone wants to scream about it, but sorry, the president set it up. Bill Clinton in 2005 set up the Clinton Global Initiative Sustainability Growth Fund. And under the auspices of being as they say, you can read it on the website, he and Frank Guistra set up a company that supposedly is a lifeline to bring supplies to luxury hotels in obscure locations or exotic locations. That's what they say they do. But what do they really do? They buy and sell uranium. And Bill Clinton now gets his piece of the pie as the Uranium One deal was giving his wife $145 million directly in violation of the Emolument Acts. She should be put in jail for each and every one of the times that she accepted money from a foreign country while the Secretary of State closed case. You don't even have to go to court. That should have been a grand jury indictment. One star person as the person presenting evidence, and she should have gone to jail for each count because that is against the law. What she did with Uranium One, what Obama did with Uranium One, what Clinton and Bush and Daddy Bush all did with Uranium One is not illegal. The Congress approved of it. The very executive committees that had to have presidential sign-off, all three, Homeland Security, Commerce, and CFIUS, the Committee for Foreign Investments in the United States, all he had to sign off. They can veto, but those committees work for the president, and he signed off of it. So how could Obama be in league with Putin and then say Trump is in league with Putin? They literally buy and sell the most precious substance we have, $140,000 an ounce, and that's before it's turned into weapons-grade high enrichment uranium, which most of the time, 85% of the time, has to be done right here in Paducah, Kentucky. And then they ripped us off for billions, folks. We're trying to, Conclave's trying to figure out, but we feel that a conservative estimate is $20 billion is what we paid for the bomb 235 uranium. But guess what? Right here in our own reserves, from our 55,000 down to 7,000 decommissioned ICBMs, we have way more uranium than the Russians did, and we haven't even used it. We haven't even given it out to our own nuclear power plants. It's not even been decommissioned. We have thousands of them sitting around ready to go, but they're not even on launching pads. We have done nothing about the most valuable substance we have in America while we sold that very market out to the Russians, and have been doing so since 1994 with the permission of the presidents, who all got their piece of the pie. That's what's going on. So when Hillary accepted $145 million, that's nothing compared to what Bill has been getting with his buddy Frank Guistra, who went over and commissioned these deals. And these deals are all coming through Canada, you see, and going back and forth across the line. Isn't that funny? The second largest holdings of uranium in the world are in Canada. They're supposed to be our friend. Why don't we buy it from them? Why don't they enrich it, send it over? We enrich it, whatever. We don't need to buy it from Russia. We never did. We have more than Russians ever had sitting in warehouses, and we don't even want to discuss what to do with it. And guess who's going to get that contract? Because this is going to continue, folks. Now, that will get me upset, and I will say personally that is BS. Tenam, Tenam, Google it, will get the contract for decommissioning the ICBMs in America. Not even Americans will decommission it. Mark my words. That's a prediction of Thomas Paine in the ass. Because why? It's the standard way that it flows. It flows into the mouth of these catfish who sit underneath the dam, who know when the dam's going to open, and they just open their mouth and catch the fish coming out. Because it's insider trading. And just recently, I was told there's going to be a law that says that nobody in the Congress can be charged with insider trading. They're all, if they have a single nickel, know exactly where to do insider trading if they're a director or on a committee, period. They know where it's going before anybody else because they're closed-door sessions. They can buy in the stock market. That is the reason John McCain's a rich man, because he's always had stock in Raytheon. Every time that war hawk is called for war, he called to have his own pockets lined with gold. But gold isn't good enough for ex-presidents and the rogue CIA, as I like to call them, because I say the CIA has controlled the White House since the time of Jimmy Carter. Again, my personal opinion, conclave nodding. So the deal is, this is standard operating procedure. Why is it being busted now? Because of one person, Donald J. Trump. He's brought the rule of law. The rule of law scares all of those people so bad that they try to attack him to stop it right now in the short run, because they're losing money, and they expose themselves. And that's what we're doing here today. We are exposing the true hoax of Uranium One. It is a complete hoax. They can scream all day long, and even if it came to people's consciousness in the mass media, through the mainstream media, they would scream these things like you already hear them screaming, and it would go nowhere because not one of them has done their homework to know that this is legal. It's the standard operating procedure. Again and again, the anonymous patriots have to show Americans and help open their eyes to the fact that your government has laws that should be illegal. And we're going to be talking more and more about that in the future as we interview some people on Aim for Truth and the American intelligence media, because we want you to have the truth. Now that you have this truth, here's what you need to know. Don't worry. Sit back. Think to the end of this. That means the weapons pointed at Russia and us, and the Russians pointed at us and the Chinese, and the weapons pointed, the nuclear weapons, it's all fake. Russia's always been our friend. We've never been at war with Russia. We gave them their nuclear program. We give them their technology so that they can be in a cold war with us, so that our technology advances, so the military-industrial complex can win on both sides, because they're international companies. They bet both sides of the ticket, always. That's what's going on. Raytheon is now got a headquarters outside of Moscow. Check it out. It's called Sklovoso, Skolvovo, Sklokovo. It's called the Tech City.
Now because you can't pronounce that, we'll have someone in the comment box saying, so you don't know anything, Thomas, because you can't pronounce it.
Mueller, Mule Face, Mulehead. I have lots of names for that guy.
Papadopoulos.
I'm sorry. And Papadopoulos and Baby Pappas and the whole thing. I mean, Papadopoulos, if you don't know, is a standard name for the Greek mafia. I mean, come on. Do we really have to just keep waking people up and say, stop believing the silent subliminal control coming across your television and simply read a book? Do something, but just
read
study.
Truth News headlines. I put out great headlines twice a day filled with all kinds of amazing content.
I haven't been able to read a book since you started putting it out because I've been so busy reading them. Yes, you keep us so busy that the conclave sometimes says, literally, I get messages saying, please tell Betsy to slow down. I can't keep up. And it's true, because why? We are in the most hopping time that we could possibly be, because we are in the Second American Revolution, and we're going to be talking more and more about that in the future, because we are seeing the deep state crumble, and it's a beautiful sight thanks to Trump. He brought morality to the White House mafia, and he's not even going to start a mafia. And as a matter of fact, they'll probably kick all of his children out before long, and he'll still be standing. Why? Because he fought the mafia in New York City. He fought all of the different evil. Washington, D.C. is a lovely, lovely flower for the thorn that is what drives America, New York City evil. I'm so sorry to have to tell all Americans who've ever paid any taxes in the last 24 years, you put money in Vladimir Putin's pocket, you are a Russian spy, and you meddled with the presidential election by default, because the people that we have elected have lied to us, and they just treat this as standard operating procedure. This is what the deep state is. You know how many people in the executive branch know this? Anyone with a brain. Anyone would know this. That's why the lobbyists are always out in front of it, making money. So 10X, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission's company in Russia, had Tony Podesta paid $180,000, and he went into the White House 114 times during the time that the Russian mafia was in America stealing or ripping off a Uranium One, and they kept it hidden because the president approves of that, and he can't say, oh, sorry, I have to now bust the company, the Russian company in America that I allowed to do this. Everybody's going to find out now that Bill Clinton gets a piece of the Kazakhstan uranium. Everybody's going to find out that Daddy Bush always got a piece of megatons to megawatts, and that 11% of the electricity from nuclear power plants last year was provided by uranium that we were ripped off from Uranium One, which was through Tenam, which is a Russian company. In other words, Americans, your taxpayer dollars not only go to subsidize those nuclear power plants, they go to subsidize the Paducah, Kentucky gas centrifuge uranium treatment plant. They go to subsidize the Clinton Global Initiative for Sustainable Growth Fund. They go to subsidize the company that does this in Canada, owned by Frank Guistra. They go to subsidize at least a dozen oligarchs who were also named in the charges for the scam that was being ran here in America, reached all the way back to Russian oligarchs. They all got a piece of the pie. Everybody knew except the U.S. citizen. So that's our job, is to remind you. That's the reason I am called Thomas Paine in the Butt. I am the pain in the butt to almost anybody I look at that is in government, because all you have to do is study their history and you will see a path of criminality that only a Robert Mueller could be the crown to. Only a Hillary Clinton could be the empress of. Only a Bill Clinton could be the pope of corruption. And only a George H.W. Bush could actually be the founder of the rogue CIA here in America. He's still alive, folks. He is still redacted from the JFK documents. We are living in a time when only a Trump can lead us in the Second American Revolution. We gave the 12 points. He knows what they are. They're very clear.
Can you go through just really fast those 12 points?
Get rid of the United States Federal Reserve. Get rid of any connection to the United Nations, which includes UNESCO, which Trump just stopped. Trump also said he's stopping all funding by 50% to the United Nations next year. If that happens, the entire world economy will have to be restructured because it will close down the World Bank, which is how we rip off all third world countries. It will close down the World Trade Organization, which is how China has come to be the number one manufacturer for America, and how we actually buy so many things from Russia that they cannot be our enemy. So to play like we're in a Cold War with Russia is just only for the military-industrial complex's gain, not for American taxpayers. Then you have to close down the International Monetary Fund, which is the way that we trick other countries into coming into a currency that we control. We have to close the Bank for International Settlements, which will immediately close all derivatives. We have to repeal the Glass-Steagall Act. We have to repeal the Bretton Woods Accords. We have to end the stock market gambling. If you're going to gamble on the stock market, you got to pay a tax. That will end the IRS tax in America, which we must end. It's illegal. We must end the Social Security tax. It is illegal. We must end central banking in America. That is the way that we gave our national interest to international companies. So the list is very, very simple. We have to take all mortgages out of a system called MERS and give it back to the people and create a land bank, exactly as Benjamin Franklin told us we would. Benjamin Franklin said we'd go back to being ruled by a monarchy. We'd go back to the sovereignty of England if we do not stay away from central banking. He said, go with a fiat currency based upon the land bank where every American owns the land they're on. They do not have to pay taxes every year because then the federal government owns it, the corporate, public, evil federal government, which there is not even a provision for in our Constitution, owns us as a debt slave because of their wars. U.S. citizens didn't vote for those wars, and oftentimes recently Congress hasn't voted for those wars. We should go back to the way the Constitution is written and applied exactly word for word. We should get out of Rothschild, Western-style central bankings, and it's not a conspiracy to say Rothschild. Look it up. They owe 123 central banks in 123 countries. We should get out of the 153 countries where we have soldiers. For what? In Africa alone, there are 54 countries. We have military bases in 53 of those countries, and in 8 of them we have created genocide, including 4.5 million in the North and South Sudan, just for oil in South Sudan. Thank you very much, Susan Rice. We have to put the criminals, we have to go back in history and stop saying that career politicians have impunity. They cannot be prosecuted. We have to prosecute the first modern presidents. And when we do that, it will send a message that the federal government needs to be downsized to next to nothing, as Trump has said. They need to get out of education. They need to get out of all these controls of everything. They need to get out of any treaties that are not approved by the Congress. They need to get out of the UN, which I've already said. And once you do that, those simple 12 things, which we put in an article, we could restore, there's certain ways to do it, certain order you have to do it. We could restore the Republic of America and stop being run by a corporate federal democracy where we think we get to vote for somebody, but even every vote is rigged. So we've already seen that from the last elections. Thank God there was a landslide for Trump and Trump came to presidency, or every horrible thing that I was talking about would have come to pass in its logical sequence and progression. But as it is, it's all shaken up. We got an earthquake like we've never seen before, and Trump is rising like a phoenix from its own ashes. Not even the fire can burn him.